Hey loves, my name is Kyle August, and today I'm going to give you an idea that is going to help you manifest much quicker, much sooner, and basically get rid of the idea of time ever holding you back on your specific person manifestation. Now, you've seen me talk on this channel a lot that time does not matter, but it truly does not matter when it comes to your manifestation. There's no amount of time that needs to pass. Your manifestations are within you and your specific person, being married, having the perfect life, having the perfect kids. That's within you at this very moment. And all we need to do is assume it. And then we're going to see that outcome happen in our external reality. But throughout the whole process, many times we do begin to fear or worry about time, right? We have this thought that time must elapse for this to happen. Or if you think if it took a couple months to manifest a date with your specific person, that it must manifest or take a couple months to then move to the next step. But this is totally not true. And if you look at a bunch of other areas of your life, because manifestation's happening all the time, all of your assumptions are always manifesting around you at any given point in time. So if you look at other things, you'll notice that manifestation isn't a linear process. It is an exponential process, meaning that things are going to, as soon as you assume the state, you're going to see a bunch of things come into your reality at a single point in time. But today, the idea that I wanted to discuss is that frequency is much, much better than time, and you need to focus more on frequency rather than time. And this is actually an idea that Neville Goddard mentioned or talked about in a lot of his books. And so we're going to talk about it here because it makes so much sense when you think about the difference between frequency and time. So the frequency in which you assume the state, the frequency throughout your day that you are getting into that feeling, really assuming that you and your specific person are already in the perfect relationship, that is a billion times more important than the amount of time spent in your manifestation. Because really, as soon as you assume the state, that thing must then reflect in your external reality. And I'll talk about a couple ideas that kind of give rise to this thought and gonna make it kind of connect all the dots or be almost the missing piece of the puzzle. Because like I mentioned, it's going to be something that everyone worries about at some point or another is going to be time. How soon am I going to get this manifestation? How soon is my specific person going to call me for a date, going to text me, going to show up in the ways that I want? But so here's the metaphor that's going to absolutely blow your mind. So imagine right now, think of if you want to learn an instrument, you want to learn a foreign language, you want to learn some sort of task, okay? Pick something that if you want to learn a new language, pick that, or maybe an instrument. So we're going to do the example of learning how to play the piano. But another example that I'm going to tell you right after this, is going to be like going on a diet or losing weight, something like that. So the first one, imagine you want to learn how to play the piano, okay? And I was going to give you two different ways in which you could do this. Throughout the process, I'm going to ask you at intervals, do you truly feel like a pianist or do you not? So the first way that we're going to learn how to play the piano is I'm going to have you practice for 1 hour at the first of each month for 2 years. Now, when I tell you that, if you were to actually kind of act or play this out and you're actually going to learn the piano in this way, would you say that this is often enough to which you are actually going to learn this? Or would you say it kind of, the interval or the frequency isn't that much? But before you answer that, I'm going to go over to the next outcome. Let's say for 1 week, I was going to have you play the piano 3 times a day for an hour. So just a week. So in the morning, you play for an hour, midday, you play for an hour, in the afternoon, you play for an hour, and then you repeat that for just 1 week. So 7 days. And then with these two different outcomes, I ask you at the end of it, do you feel like a piano player? Do you feel like a pianist? If I asked you, do you play the piano? In each instance, how would you respond to that? So the first one, so the one where you're playing just for an hour at the first of each month for 2 years, if I asked you, are you a pianist? You would probably say, well, I play the piano sometimes, right? At the beginning of each month, I play for an hour. But other than that, I'm not a pianist. I just play the piano sometimes. But in the second option, in which you practice 3 times a day just for a week, If I were to ask you in that feeling you would contain internally, you would say, yeah, I feel like a pianist. I'm a piano player. It is heavily ingrained in my assumptions and in my life. But the funny thing is, this is the same thing when it comes to your manifestation. The frequency is more important than the amount of time. Because think of even the situation that I just mentioned. The first person played actually more than in the second scenario. So the first person played 1 hour at the beginning of each month for 2 years, which is a total of 24 times. But the second option, when you played for just a week, you practiced 3 times a day. So you played only a total of 21 times. But the second time, because the frequency was higher, you felt more in the state, you felt more like a pianist than you did with that other option. And another example that kind of makes this make sense, because maybe you're like, well, maybe I would still feel like a pianist, right? But the idea is, would you actually be able to play, in which option would you play the piano better? You would know that the higher frequency would lead to, you would really get into that state and feel that, basically you'd be that piano player. But the other kind of metaphor that I always like to use in this case is going to be the metaphor of working out or being healthy. If you were going to work out for one time a month for an hour at the beginning of each month, would you say you'd make a lot of progress in that way? You'd be like, well, not really, right? Because I'm only working out for an hour. You wouldn't feel like a healthy person. You wouldn't feel like an active person. You wouldn't feel like an athlete. But in the second case, when you work out for a week, if you worked out 3 times a day for a week, you would feel like an athlete, right? You would feel healthy. You would feel, maybe 3 times a day might be too much. Let's say you're just working out twice a day. You would feel more in the state of health, more in the state of someone who is just, healthy in general, athlete, right? Athletic, active. You would feel much more in the state in that instant than you would if you just worked out at the beginning for 1 hour at the beginning of each month for 2 years, even though in both of these scenarios, the outcome for the 2-year mark, 1 time a month, actually occurs and causes more time to be spent playing the piano or being active. But you know the progress and the assumptions and the feeling internally in the state that you were in would not equal that of the time spent for just a week. So now all we have to do is implement this and take this same idea, begin to utilize it when it comes to manifesting our specific person. If I were to ask you at what frequency you are getting into the state or feeling in the end of your manifestation, do you think you're doing it just 1 time a month at the beginning of each month for a couple of years and you feel like so much time has passed, why haven't I got the results I want? Switch that to the frequency happening 3 times a day for a week, and you're going to get so much more results than you ever would have done beforehand or in any other situation or any other instance. Because I cannot stress it enough, in so many coaching sessions, a lot of times when people begin working with me, they have this idea, and everyone's going to have this idea at some point or another, but kind of before you really dive into the law of assumption. But we always feel like time is significant in some way, right? The amount of time we spend doing something, the amount of time we spend in something seems more significant than anything else, right? So the amount of time manifesting, a lot of times people come in or come to a coaching session with me and be like, oh, I've been manifesting for a year. I've been manifesting for 2 years. Why haven't I seen the results? But think about that connection that we're making within our mind. We're making or assuming that the time has anything to do with the feeling or the assumption that we're having. Because to see something outside of us, we need to assume the state, right? It has nothing to do with the amount of time we spent thinking of it. It's the amount of time and frequency we have thinking from it, like the difference between thinking of the end and thinking from the end. The more time the more frequency we spend thinking from the end, that's the more progress. That's a state, because as soon as you assume it, your reality must then reflect this new sense of self and this new state that you are embodying. So right now, I would actually take a look at everything that you're doing, everything you're feeling, all of your assumptions, and ask yourself, do you feel like you put more power in time rather than frequency? And if not, how often do you find yourself in this frequency? So how often do you find yourself living in the state? And again, relate it to the piano metaphor or the dieting or the health metaphor. Would you feel more in the end having a higher frequency or having more time spent in it? And the answer to that is going to mean a lot. So I want you guys to take a look at your current routine and ask yourself again, how can I increase the frequency of living in the end rather than assuming that time's going to get me to where I want to go? If you did have any questions or comments on this video, make sure to leave them in the comment section below. And then remember also, if you ever needed extra help, we can always work one-on-one through coaching. Just head over to my website, which is kyleaugustcoaching.com. Remember, you can also send me a personal message through there as well. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up on this video, and then don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me. I absolutely cannot wait to see you with your specific person. I'll see you in the next video.